Stream. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, sir, on YouTube and Rumble. I'm streaming on both channels simultaneously. Today is 14th of August. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared a news segment for you with all the main topics that Russian media and the public is talking about, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful. And if so, please, if you can, like the video, and after stream, leave some commentary with your opinion on any topic. It might help to reach wider audience. Also, dear friends, as you know, my channel is monetized on Rumble, and if you have any question or comment that you want to be 100% highlighted during the stream, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble to send your message, basically. And so yes, that's it. Let's talk about news now. And first of all, I give you this report from Russian Defense Ministry's latest update that overnight, since yesterday 8 o'clock evening until 7 o'clock this morning, air defense systems on duty intercepted 44 drones that was launched by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. I'll give you some specifics on that. 14 drones were intercepted over the Black Sea, 9 drones over the Volgograd region, 7 drones over the Crimea, also 7 drones over the Rostov region, 4 over the Krasnodar territory, 2 over the Belgorod region, 1 over the Azov Sea. And when it comes to these strikes, dear friends, this morning, Kiev regime continued, the Kiev regime and its NATO backers continue this attempt to strike deep into Russian territory. And well, in Belgorod, for example, they conducted yet another terror attack, basically, on Russian civilians, and they struck directly with a drone civilian vehicle. Also, reports are that they conducted a strike on an administrative building there in Belgorod, and I'll give you a video, dear friends. It will say it all. I'll give you a video of this intentional direct strike on Russian civilians in Belgorod. This is the video, and it's quite clear what Kiev regime and its NATO backers are doing, by the way. You see, direct hit on a moving civilian vehicle, by the way. Let's see it once again. It's a street, vehicles are moving, it's morning time, and drone struck clearly, intentionally, in 2 vehicles. 3 civilians were in this vehicle, and miraculously, all 3 survived. Although, according to some reports that I see, one of the civilians lost a leg as a result of this terrorist attack of Kiev regime and NATO. Unfortunately, not the first time, and I'm afraid not the last time when Russian civilians were being targeted by this Zelensky's terrorist regime and its NATO backers. That's the animals that we are fighting, by the way. I'm not going to use word people, because they are not people, by the way. They are fucking animals. Leadership of Kiev regime and the leadership of Western countries are fucking animals, man. That's what they are, and there can be no respect towards them. Rabid fucking animals, they are. That's it, period. And we will exterminate them all, by the way. They will come. We will exterminate them all, as we should, because there can be no mercy towards rabid animals. That's how it is, man. That's how it is. To continue, reporter, I reported yesterday also, I believe, that Russian armed forces took Krasnoarmeysk or Pokrovsk-Pavlograd highway under fire control. And on my Telegram and Twitter X page, by the way, you can see a video of confirmation of that road is actually under Russian fire control. I tried to share video during the stream, but for whatever reason, StreamYard does not like that video. I don't know. Maybe StreamYard is also getting involved in a sort of censorship or something. I don't know. I could not upload the video to show you. But anyways, you can see that video on my Telegram and Twitter X page, where you can see a blog post of Kiev regime exactly on that road was obliterated, basically, as a result of Russian strikes. So clearly, highway is under Russian fire control, and the Kiev regime's forces in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd are, I will say, encircled, in operational encirclement for sure, but I will say encircled. They still have opportunity to flee city with their heavy losses, but nevertheless to flee city if they will choose to do so. Otherwise, they're all going to be exterminated in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and surrounding areas. All the Ukrainian fascists, Nazis, and their NATO allies, so-called NATO mercenaries, that in reality, in majority of cases, are literally NATO special forces or NATO military personnel disguised as mercenaries. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, unfortunately, as a result of a NATO terrorist attack on Russian Federation, oil refinery caught fire in the Volgograd region, and of course, emergency services are working in a place to neutralize the consequences of this strike. Of course, there will be Russian retaliation, no doubts about that, and the Kiev regime and its backers are going to suffer significant losses. Interfax is also reporting that, this topic of Alaska, by the way, Alaska summit, is still being talked about in the media and partially by public. Although at this point, probably everybody is sick and tired of hear about this, but nevertheless, it is a topic that media, at least, does pay attention to. And yesterday, once again, Trump was asked about this summit, what he will do if results would not be of his liking. And he went to threaten Russia once again with some severe consequences. And this time, StreamYard allowed me to give you a video of this in a short clip of Trump's threats. Let's listen to this.
Any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
Okay, very severe consequences. I mean, we are forced to basically deal with these morons, man. In 2 days' time, he have to have a meeting with the Russian president, and he's threatening again. I don't know. I'm afraid that meeting in Alaska truly might end up being a total waste of time, at least for Russian, in case of Russian president and the Russian delegation. But yet again, decision was made, isn't it, to hold these talks, and we will see. We will see what will happen there. But attitude from Washington is clearly not constructive. Clearly not constructive. I don't know why Moscow is tolerating this kind of behavior of enemy, and the Trump and U.S. administration. U.S. As a state and every other NATO member state is a Russian enemy, obviously, and their leaderships. But yet again, it's up to Putin, right? He is the president of Russian Federation. If someone like me was a Russian president, Trump would not be able to say even a single word by now. He would be on his way to the hell. But Russian president is very kind, right? He is going to waste his time talking to this freaking moron, man. But anyways, let's wait and see many people are saying that, you know what, let's give a diplomacy chance. Let's see what is going to happen. Don't be this skeptical about everything. And okay, by the way, I mean, it's only like 48 hours, isn't it, before that meeting will take place, and we will know for sure was it worth to waste time or not. If there is a slight chance, that Moscow will manage to pull out US either fully or partially, at least, from this proxy war that West is or the Western ruling class globally is waging against Russia, then maybe it's worth trying. Maybe it's worth for Russian side to, исследовать. How should I say исследовать, man? You know what? Let me transfer. To research, to do some explore, basically, not to research, but to explore the such possibility, right? If it is even theoretically possible to pull out US from this crisis, but from this proxy war that US is engaged directly against Russia. But yet again, what can I say, man? I'm skeptical about all this stuff, but we will find out. So yes, Trump is threatening Russia again. Not really surprised there. RIA Novosti is reporting that US are ready to give Ukraine security guarantees only outside of NATO, whatever that means. You remember, until now, Washington was kind of refusing to give any guarantees, any security guarantees to this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. But now things are changing, and this information is clearly one more indicator. I will say that this Alaska summit is going to be total waste of time. So US President Donald Trump has agreed to give Ukraine security guarantees, but only if they are not linked to NATO. Political reports citing informed sources. Trump said he would make such a commitment only if the effort did not involve NATO. I mean, whatever that means, by the way. US is a NATO member state. Almost whole Europe is NATO member state, and they're enemies of Russia. And what Trump is even talking about, I don't know, and I'm not even gonna try no more to understand what kind of logic is behind their statements, because you're not gonna understand morons. By the way, it's just not possible, right? Also, TASS news agency is reporting that despite the threats that Trump is issuing again towards Russia, he went. He is hopeful that Russia, US, Ukraine summit will be held, and you might be surprised, but according to CBS, already next week, which is yet again, I don't know. I'm skeptical of that. But yes, administration of the US President Donald Trump is looking for a venue for a trilateral summit with Russia and Ukraine to be held at the end of the next week. CBS reported, citing on sources. I don't think this is realistic. Russian president was very clear that he has no issue with meeting Zelensky face to face, although he's not going to be happy about it. But he will meet him only if certain agreements actually are reached, right? And I don't think any agreement is going to be reached between Moscow and Kiev anytime soon. Some statements might be made, but when it comes to actual steps towards the escalation, I don't think either Kiev regime or its, most importantly, its globalist masters gonna allow this to happen, right? And yes, Trump himself stated that a second meeting after Alaska between Putin and Zelensky almost immediately to take place. He is ready to be a part of it. But if don't get answers, we are not gonna have a second meeting. That's what Trump said yet again. And these quotes from Trump, that media, this is RT is sharing this report. These quotes don't really make much sense. RT is also reporting that Kyiv ready to discuss territory with Moscow, according to Merz, German chancellor. I understand that globalists and globalist-controlled regimes all over the Europe are masters of the Kyiv regime, but nevertheless, I don't think it is good optics when Merz is saying one thing, Macron is saying another, Stammer something very different, and Zelensky then comes out and says something that contradicts all those statements from his bosses, right? And therefore, I don't think this statement of Merz actually has any meaning in it. But after all, he's the Chancellor of Germany. That's why I'm sharing, by the way, that Kyiv is ready to discuss territorial issues with Moscow, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said on Wednesday after a video conference with US President Donald Trump and other European leaders and their friends. I remember that Zelensky was in Germany yesterday and he is going to UK today. So he will have some meeting with Stammer, Prime Minister of UK, and probably we're going to hear some more nonsensical or crazy statements today from these animals. RT is also reporting that, well, as I said, by the way, Merz is saying that Kyiv regime is ready to discuss some territorial issues, potential exchange of territories, as Trump was insisting at least until now. And we also have this report that Zelensky refuses to leave Donbass. So Ukrainian troops will not voluntarily leave the territory they currently occupy in Donbass. So Vladimir Zelensky has said, dismissing suggestions that the land could be included in a potential swap deal with Russia. So, dear friends, you tell me what to make of all this stuff that we are hearing from either Kyiv regime or their Western masters or the capitals of their collective West countries. What kind of conclusions we might have? Because yet again, I mean, literally on daily basis, all these people, all these animals, by the way, they are not freaking people, they're fucking animals. These animals are coming up with some statements that are contradicting each other. Only one explanation I can come up with, I mean, animals are animals, right? These brainless creatures don't understand what they are talking about. That's the only explanation, I guess. Meanwhile, leadership of Collective West, the so-called coalition of willing, has laid out their demands as they, if they mean anything, these demands of coalition of the willing. And well, these demands are that they are ready to deploy reassurance, so-called reassurance forces to Ukraine after ceasefire. I don't think Moscow is going to be happy about it. This is a clearly red line, I suppose. They want no limitation as placed on the Zelensky's army, and they say Russia cannot have a veto against Ukraine's pathway to EU and NATO. So basically, globalists and globalist-controlled regimes in Europe are openly saying that they're not going to accept no agreement if any will be reached between Putin and Trump during the Alaska summit, and therefore, what why should that meeting even take place then? Maybe Putin and Trump will discuss some bilateral issues, and I said in previous updates that summit might end up being more about bilateral relationships than Ukrainian crisis. But you just never know, isn't it? You just never know. Clearly, globalist and globalist-controlled regimes don't want to see any agreement that would actually lead their situation towards true de-escalation. All they want is a little break so that, some 30-day ceasefire, 50-day ceasefire, whatever they can pull off as a break for their proxy regime in Kiev and their forces, right, to reorganize them, rearm, and to then renew their hostilities. That's all it is, right? So therefore, probably Moscow is listening, by the way. I guess Moscow is listening to all these statements, all these demands. And who knows, maybe today or tomorrow even Kremlin will say that Western elites clearly are demonstrating their unreadiness or unwillingness to have a meaningful dialogue. So therefore, this meeting would not take place between Putin and Trump. I think there is a slight chance, little chance, but still, nevertheless, a chance that this might actually happen, because more such statements we will hear with the nonsensical demands of West. More chances are actually that Russian side will be extremely irritated, and eventually, I mean, after all, Putin is quite a busy man, right? He is the president of Russian Federation. He has a lot to do, and to waste a whole day for a nonsensical meeting with a nonsensical creature from US that Trump is I mean, it's just too much to ask, right? Too much to ask. But yet again, maybe there is some backdoor communication between Washington and Moscow, and some agreements secretly already being reached, and Washington will use whatever leverage it has, if any, over the globalists and the globalist control regimes in Europe to force these agreements to be implemented. Maybe this will happen, I don't know, but there have to be some results from that meeting, isn't it? Otherwise, it's embarrassing. Otherwise, it's going to be embarrassing, man. Russian president was never about some photo ops, right? I don't know about Trump. I mean, he loves to be in a spotlight, right? But Russian president never was about some photo ops and some pure media campaigns. So therefore, there have to be some results from that meeting. And if either today or tomorrow, there will be some more indicators and information that Alaska summit gonna end up being a total waste of time, then Moscow might just postpone that visit of Putin. I don't know. Theoretically, that's a possibility, because it seems to be a mistake on part of Russian leadership to agree on such a meeting. At least that's the impression that I have right now. Things might change, obviously, but And as I already said, Zelensky is planning to visit UK today, and we're gonna hear some more crazy statements from him and from Stammer and some others, I guess. Okay, by the way, I guess Russian president after those statements will have more reasons to either postpone or to cancel that meeting with Trump. RIA Novosti is also reporting that the foreign ministry stated that Russia's position on Ukraine remains unchanged. I think this statement was necessary because many people here in Russia was asking questions while hearing reports about some territory swaps, while hearing reports that even in case of territory swaps, if Russia withdraws forces from Kharkov and the Sumy region, Kyiv regime will only withdraw forces from DPR and LPR, from forest area of LPR. Otherwise, they don't control no settlement in LPR. But DPR is a different story. And people were asking questions, what about Kherson? What about Zaporozhye? Right? And I think this statement from foreign ministry was needed to calm things down a little bit. And so report is that Russia's fundamental position on the settlement in Ukraine remains unchanged. It was voiced by Russian leader Vladimir Putin in June 2024, said Alexei Fyodorov, deputy director of the information and the press department of the Russian foreign ministry. As for their principled position on resolving the crisis, Russia's position is unchanged, and it was, these news agencies, by the way, are killing me, man. They are repeating twice, sometimes 3 times, same sentences, man. who teach them how to write news, man? Such embarrassment, man. This RIA Novosti and their TASS and many others are, man, for true journalists, right? But nevertheless, we have to use some sources, isn't it, while reporting about it? At least information is correct. Who cares how they are writing? Maybe someday they will learn a little better. So yes, Russian position has not changed in regards to Ukrainian crisis. And I remind you, dear friends, that in 14th of July, that was, I believe, in 2024, when Russian president had a meeting with the leadership of foreign ministry, and he basically, in quite a detail, highlighted their potential roadmap towards the peace that Russia prefers, right? And according to statements of Russian president at the time, Moscow is ready for a meaningful dialogue with the Kiev regime for cessation of hostilities, military operations. That is, if Kiev regime will withdraw its forces from new Russian regions, that is obviously Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, DPR, and LPR, right? And obviously, Russian side was clear that these new territories have to be acknowledged as a part of Russia. Kiev regime has to guarantee rights of Russian-speaking people on Kiev-controlled territory, ethnic and religious minorities, and Kiev regime's armed forces have to be downgraded, right, to make sure that they're not going to cause any threats to anybody, including Russia. And there were some basic points that was highlighted by Russian president basically in 2024. And I already said, isn't it, that where is that report? Oh, for fuck's sake, man. Can you imagine this? That's it. That coalition of willing, for example, is rejecting all of it. Coalition of willing is rejecting all the principles that Russia highlighted for sustainable peace to be reached. Moscow was very clear that the deployment of NATO troops on Kiev-controlled territory is unacceptable. Well, globalists and their control regimes don't care about it. They are openly saying that once a ceasefire is reached, they're going to deploy their troops. Also, they are rejecting limitations on Zelensky's regime or Kiev regime's forces. And also, Russian side was demanding neutrality of the so-called Ukraine, and coalition of willing, or the globalists basically, are saying that this is also something that they will never agree. And they are once again stating that it's not up to Russia to decide what NATO will do and will not. So, okay, by the way, this report of Russian Foreign Ministry is important, obviously, but once again, when you have all these statements, threats, and all kind of aggressive statements from the collective West, why Russian president is going to Alaska then? Really? Or why we are saying that they're going to talk about Ukrainian crisis? If this meeting is about bilateral relationships between the two countries, okay, that will make more sense. But when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, I don't think they're going to reach any agreement whatsoever, because globalists would not care about it. That's it, right? So what is the point to agree on something that they cannot implement? Bilateral relationships, okay, they are a bit different. Maybe Moscow and Washington will agree on something. Who knows, right? We will see. We will see, man. As I said, at this point, probably everybody's sick and tired of hearing about Alaska. Nobody ever heard about Alaska this many times, in entire life, probably, right? In this short period of time. Probably even Alaskans did not hear about their state this many times from every freaking media outlet or every place. Okay, nevertheless, I want to share with you this report from TASS News Agency that Scott Ritter, by the way, U.S. military expert who is in Russia these days, made a statement during the interview with the TASS News Agency that Europe without the U.S. will not be able to cope with the continuation of the Ukrainian conflict. Europe is not capable of withstanding the Ukrainian conflict without the United States. It has no opportunity to support Ukraine without American resources. This according to Scott Ritter. And I have to agree with this statement, because I have said very same stuff many times before, and many others, by the way, in alternative media. It is quite obvious that without US, globalist controlled Europe will struggle big time to sustain further prolongation of this conflict for many, many years. And they will risk simultaneously, to provoke direct conflict between European NATO member states and Russia. And if US, for example, stays out of it, then obviously globalist controlled Europe has no chances, right? But yet again, question is, will US be pulled out from this conflict? Because globalists, we should keep in mind that globalists have quite influential allies in US, right? That is Democrats, majority of neocons, by the way, right? Zionists are their allies too, and Zionists, we know how powerful and influential in US Zionists are, probably even more powerful than neocons, right? Nothing to be said about deep state. So therefore, even though I myself said in previous updates that if there is a slight chance that Moscow can, with some sort of deals, offers to US, if Moscow would manage to pull out US from this conflict, from this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, either fully or even partially, that would be a great success, because without US, Europe is much less capable, let's see, in military and every other terms, right? But will Moscow succeed in that? That's the question I have. Will Moscow succeed in that? We all have seen irrational behavior of Trump. Probably none of us have any doubts that Trump is seriously compromised, right? His takes on Epstein files, his takes on Israel and Israeli crimes committed against humanity clearly demonstrates that he is compromised. Also, his statements in regards to Ukrainian crisis clearly contradicts his statements during the election campaign. So therefore, it is difficult to actually be optimistic on a topic that Moscow will manage to pull out US from this proxy war. Although theoretically it is a possibility, because Moscow can actually offer deals to US that no rational leadership of US should ever refuse. But yet again, Trump is a not rational person, and his inner circle are not rational people. They demonstrated that quite a number of times, and their forces that are either behind them or in control of them clearly also are not rational. So therefore, chances that US will actually withdraw from this war against Russia is almost next to none, unfortunately. But nevertheless, if Putin thinks he can pull off this success, I will say, if Putin is sure that he can offer a deal that Washington would not be able to resist or refuse, then okay, let him explore the possibilities. Okay, we will see. Isn't it? Next 48 hours will be quite telling in this regard. Also, dear friends, we have this report from RIA Novosti that Russia disrupted Ukraine's missile program. There was much talk, especially from Germany, that Turkey regime will produce its long-range missiles and stuff. And Germany, according to reports that I see, Germany was actually directly involved in financing of this program and developing this program of long-range missiles. And Russian FSB, Federal Security Service, together with militaries, conducted a complex operation to basically decimate capabilities of Kiev regime on its territory to build long-range missile systems that could reach Moscow and beyond. But anyways, let's go through some details here. This report is from this morning, dear friends, or something new. So Moscow has thwarted Kiev's plans to produce Sapsan missile systems for strikes deep into Russia. The FSB reported, Russia's Federal Security Service. So the Federal Security Service, in cooperation with their Ministry of Defense, as a result of a joint special operation, inflicted their fire damage on facilities, kinetic damage, let's say, on facilities of their military-industrial complex of Ukraine involved in the creation of operational tactical missile systems. Their special service stated operational details. Ukraine secretly developed a missile program using technology and their stockpiles left over from their USSR. Well, I mean, I guess they received their assistance from Germany too, and from UK, and from France and US also, by the way, isn't it? We should not rule that out. FSB has information on their production of Sapsan trains, Sapsan missiles, sorry. Sapsan is a train also in Russia, and therefore this mechanical translation is mistaking this name of missile for name of train. But anyways, FSB had information on the production of Sapsan missiles, including their exact coordinates of their enterprises involved in the project. In May, Vladimir Zelensky met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, having in hand the documentation on their missile complex. Berlin financed their program. Production was launched at the defense enterprises in Dnipropetrovsk and the Sumy regions, including their Pavlograd chemical plant and their Shostka state plant, Zvezda. In theory, the radius of destruction included Moscow, Minsk, Vitebsk, Kaluga, Tula, Vladimir, Donetsk, and their nuclear center in Sarov. As a result of strikes, Russian strikes, their technical base for the production of long-range ballistic missiles was destroyed. As a result of their operation, the Ukrainian military-industrial complex suffered colossal damage. For its part, the Ministry of Defense reported that Russian Ministry of Defense that in July, the Russian armed forces struck design bureaus, missile weapons assembly plants, or factories for the production of fuel for it. Western air defense systems that covered these facilities, 4 Patriot air defense missile launchers, AN MPQ-65 radar station. The department added that the information about the disruption of Kiev's plans was confirmed by several independent sources. So, well, sad day for enemies of Russia that were hoping that they're going to launch formally long-range missiles that were produced on Kiev regime to strike deep into Russian territory. Although, by the way, based on this report, one might assume now that, Western regimes will begin sending more of their own long-range missiles. So threat is not fully neutralized of these long-range missile strikes deep into Russian territory, but I guess Russian FSB, Russian Defense Ministry, and other security services are ready to deal with whatever provocations and threats collective West and enemies of Russia might come up with. Also, dear friends, when it comes to missiles, let me give you this report that Russia is allegedly, by the way, Russia is preparing to attest its new 9M 730 Burevestnik intercontinental cruise missile this week, equipped with their nuclear propulsion system. This was reported by Reuters, by the way, in Russian media. I did not see no report about this stuff. Observers have noted heightened activity at their Pankovo test site on the Novaya Zemlya archipelago in the Barents Sea, including increased their personnel, equipment, and the presence of ships and aircraft linked to earlier Burevestnik trials. And, we will see, isn't it? If today or tomorrow, right before Trump-Putin summit will take place, if Russia will successfully test this unique, absolutely unique, by the way, missile system with nuclear propulsion, of course, that will be, quite a positive stuff, isn't it? Quite a positive stuff, and a message to enemies of Russia. that well, we can reach all of you anywhere on this planet. And Burovestnik is of course nuclear capable, by the way. It not just has a nuclear propulsion system, but it can carry nuclear warhead. And the range of this system is almost unlimited, by the way. It's called formally intercontinental, but due to this nuclear propulsion system, its range is limitless. It can fly literally towards any point on this planet. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that well, location of the Zapad 2025 military exercises of Russian and Belarusian troops has been announced. So the Zapad 2025 military maneuvers will take place at the training grounds near Borisov, where key actions by Russian and Belarusian troops are planned this year. Okay, I guess NATO will pay close attention to this, because obviously these Zapad maneuvers, by the way, that are taking place on year-on-year basis are massive military maneuvers. Tens of thousands of troops are participating in these operations, thousands of pieces of military equipment, and understandably, these maneuvers do make enemies of Russia quite nervous, which is good. Also, dear friends, the Northern Fleet of the Russian Federation has launched large-scale exercises involving 2,000 troops and up to 14 warships and submarines with the live operations, with live fire training, basically, in the Barents and the White Seas. Also good news, by the way. And in addition to that, warships of the Russian Navy and the People's Liberation Army of China Navy have entered the Pacific Ocean for joint patrols, while leaving Avacha Bay. The warships of their detachment conducted the exercises in anti-drone defense and all type of defense in the Pacific Ocean. The vessels worked out maneuver techniques with the reorganization into different formations, the Russian Defense Ministry reported. So yes, military cooperation between Russia and China is increasing. I would like to see China being more helpful to Russia in this struggle against the united evil force that Western ruling class is. But well, nevertheless, or at least something is happening. Some cooperation is taking place, and who knows? By the way, maybe leadership of China, India, some other countries in this world, leading countries, or not leading countries, but countries that want to see success when it comes to multipolar world, creation of the multipolar world. Hopefully those countries will be more helpful to Russia, because I don't think Russia has to fight this war for humanity alone against this evil force that Western ruling elites, Western ruling class is. And I'm, as an ordinary citizen of the Russian Federation, very much upset that neither China, neither India, neither Indonesia, neither, I don't know, South Africa or Brazil or any other country that are constantly talking about multipolarity did send their troops to Russia to help, by the way. Even if Russia did not ask, they should at least offer such support, right? Instead of constantly saying that they are neutral. Why are they neutral, for God's sake? That's the question I have. Why are they neutral when we, Russia, are fighting evil force? How can they be neutral, by the way? How? Especially if they are our friends and allies. Makes no sense, right? So hopefully they will get involved in assisting of Russia in a bigger way than now, right? Especially in terms of military assistance, because this economical ties, and some people are saying that, well, they did not impose sanctions on Russia, they did not stop doing business with Russia. For God's sake, they did it for themselves, right? They did not did it for Russia. They did it, first of all, for themselves. I mean, let's not forget about it, right? They are not doing some favors for Russia. They did it for themselves, first of all. So it would be good if instead of or on top of this combined military exercises and stuff, China, for example, would send its freaking militaries. 200,000-300,000 troops would be very helpful, I will say, and also a couple of thousand of tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, personal carriers, and so on, artillery, whatever. By the way, just send it. We will find ways to use it to defeat this evil force. And same can be done by other countries too, if they really are for multipolarity and if they really are rationalized, by the way. Yet again, your friends don't have to ask you for help. If you see your friend is in trouble, you are helping anyway because you are a friend, right? And North Korea, by the way, was a prime example of that. Iran was an example of that. Russia did not ask North Korea to send its troops, but Pyongyang said, you know what, you helped us with your troops, with your personnel, by the way. And during the Korean War, by the way, majority of planes, fighter planes of North Korean Air Force was piloted by Soviet pilots, right? And there was a ground forces too. Although when it comes to ground forces, of course, China was involved in much greater scale. But nevertheless, North Korea did not wait until Moscow would say, you know what, can you help us with a couple of thousand troops there? They said themselves that, you know what, we are friends. So, we see you are in trouble. I'm going to help you any way I can. And they send, I don't know, 10, 12, 15,000 troops or whatever. But they actually did participate, by the way, in this fight against evil, right? And I expect same to be done by much more powerful countries in this world that position themselves to be in favor of multipolarity and to be friends of Russia or allies of Russia, even strategical partners, right? Including, by the way, it's not just China or India or other countries worldwide far away from Russia, let's say. Although China is a Russian neighbor, it's not far away. But this can be said about CSTO too, by the way. CSTO is a military alliance, right? That was created by former Soviet republics. And I truly don't understand how come that none of these CSTO countries send their troops, by the way, to help Russia. And why this organization still exists then? That's a big question that I have, It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, man. Why they did not send troops like North Korea did to help Russia clear their Kursk salient area from invading forces? I don't get it. But nevertheless, some maneuvers between Russian and Chinese navies are taking place in Pacific. Cooperation is there from militaries, but I want to see greater involvement of leading countries in this world in this fight against a united evil force that Western ruling class is, and Russia should not be alone in this fight against this evil force. RIA Novosti is also reporting that over 70 people was injured during their protests in Serbia last night, dear friends, in several cities in Serbia, including Belgrade, capital. I guess Western-controlled elements went on the streets. They began attacking civilians. They began attacking police. A lot of videos are circulating on internet. Probably you already have seen that. And they were demanding early elections that might actually take place. And according to reports, over 70 people were injured as a result of this criminal activity, of this westernized or propagandized by the West morons and the criminals. And the 16 policemen was also injured as a result of these actions. Unfortunately, Serbia is in deep trouble, by the way. What can I say? Serbia is in deep trouble. Vucic does literally everything that he is ordered by his Western masters, with the exception of few points, and he is a Western puppet, by the way. Don't think Vucic is a independent politician. He is a freaking Western bitch, right? And he does everything that he is ordered to, with the exception of a few points. And he is not agreed on these few points because that will cause serious unrest inside the country, right? From actual patriots of Serbia. And these topics are recognition of Kosovo and Serbian people. I want to believe, by the way, that majority of Serbian people would never agree on that, right? Other topic is to Serbia to cut ties with the Bosnian Serbs, by the way, and to left them alone there in Republika Srpska, especially leadership of Republika Srpska, to be betrayed by Belgrade. That's what Western elites want. And the third point is sanctions on Russia. And by the way, even though Serbia did not impose sanctions on Russia, because that would be a very unpopular move inside Serbia itself, at least among the true patriots of Serbia that see Russia as a brotherly nation and Russians. But even though there's no official sanctions on Russia from Serbia, I remind you, dear friends, that Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, at least on 2 occasions, made open statements that Serbian military-industrial complex is involved in transfer to parties of weapons and munition to a Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. So this third point is, I guess, not that relevant for masters of the Vucic, Western masters of the Vucic. But first 2 points, recognition of Kosovo and betrayal of Bosnian Serbs, is definitely top demands from the West that Vucic is not agree yet, or did not agree yet. And that's the reason why globalists are constantly stirring the situation in Serbia, right? And I'm afraid at one point they might actually succeed and conduct regime change or force Vucic to appoint early elections, and these Western-controlled animals will gain the majority, gain the power, right? These traitors of Serbia, traitors of Slavic people, right? They will gain majority, and they're gonna ruin Serbia. By the way, that's it. They're gonna turn Serbia into any other Brussels-controlled territory that you see all over the EU, right? Colony, basically. They're gonna turn Serbia into a pure colony of the globalists. And when it comes to globalists and their assault on European states that are there to disagree with globalists 100% at the time, well, another one is Hungary. By the way, Hungary's leadership tries hard to defend the national interests of Hungary as they see it, right? And the Russian military intelligence service made their information public that Brussels is plotting regime change in Hungary after Budapest blocked an EU budget. It says preps Europe for war with Russia. The EU is eyeing opposition leader Peter Magyar as the replacement, and have Ukraine helping by doing all their dirty work via spies and their diaspora. And well, Budapest already blamed the EU regime for criminal activity on Hungary's territory, and well, now we have additional information of that Brussels are actually using their proxy regime in Kiev, or the globalists, by the way, are using their proxy regime in Kiev to do some dirty work in Hungary. And I'm afraid globalists might actually succeed to turn their political situation in Hungary on 180 degrees and put in power prostitutes, by the way, of the Brussels, prostitutes of the globalists. And at that point, Hungary is finished, obviously. There is a high chance of that because of the propaganda. Hungarian leadership had to be more strong when it comes to Western influence, but they are playing these games, isn't it? They are playing games of the so-called democracy with rules that were created by their globalists themselves. And obviously, in this case, Budapest has no chances. Or true patriots of Hungary have no chances, by the way. They're going to lose their country. It's only a matter of time. And same can be said about Serbia, by the way. You play the games with their globalists, with their rules, or you're going to lose, by the way. You just have no chances. That's it, right? Anyways, a few more news, dear friends, for this new segment, and that's about it. So I is reporting that India and Russian foreign ministers to meet in Moscow. So Indian Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar will visit Moscow next week and hold the key bilateral discussions with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Russian Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday the talks, which will be held on August 21st, will also focus on Russia-India cooperation on major international issues. Okay, by the way, I would like to see India being more involved militarily in supporting Russia in this fight against her evil force, because it is necessary, by the way. This is fight for India too, right? And India definitely has the opportunity to send its militaries either directly or indirectly, by the way, either indirectly. Tens of thousands of Indian troops, battle capable troops can temporarily sign up for Russian Defense Ministry, to join Russian Defense Ministry. That can be one way, right? For 6 months period of time or year period of time, if they want to, right? If there is a willing, then you will find the ways how to support, right, your friend. Or private military companies can be created, especially to basically deal with this situation, and Indian militaries can sign up for this company for 6 to 12 months, whatever time is needed, right? And they can participate in this fight against the united evil that West is. And India knows perfectly well that Western elites are evil, by the way. They don't need no historical lessons, by the way. India was the richest country in this world, literally the richest country in this world, by the way, when it was colonized by British Empire. And when British Empire, at least formally, left India, although they did not left her fully, but when formally British Empire left India, India was one of the poorest countries in this world. And India still fights, by the way. To these days, by the way, India is struggling to pull out its great population from poverty. It has great success on this path, obviously. But still, by the way, millions and millions, tens of millions of people in India still need help to get rid of poverty, right? And why this is happening? Because of the British Empire, right? So if anybody, by the way, don't needs no lecturing about how evil Western so-called elites are, then India is definitely among those countries, for sure. Right? And they know we are fighting evil, by the way. So help us, for God's sake. Are you waiting Moscow to ask you why? You propose what you can do to support us in this fight. But it is good. It is good that meeting will take place. And whatever their case, by the way, no matter which way India will help Russia or not help Russia, it is in interest of both countries. I'm 100% convinced to have truly strategical relationships, by the way. It is in interest of both countries because there is a China in the middle, by the way. China that is not friend of Russia and not friend of India. Let's be real on that too. And never going to be our friend or friend of India's. We might have a good relationships, good neighboring relationships today, tomorrow, but you just never know what is going to happen day after tomorrow, right? So we have to be cautious, and therefore, for many reasons, historical ties and also current situation on the ground clearly are leaving no options for us, for Russian and India, but to be strategical partners in every possible way. TASS news agency is also reporting that U.S. might soften rhetoric on India's import of Russian oil after Alaska meeting. So India does not rule out that after the meeting between Russia and U.S. President Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, Washington's rhetoric regarding New Delhi's purchases of Russian oil might soften, and U.S. tariffs on Indian imports might be reduced. This was stated to us by source in the Indian government, and rhetoric might soften from U.S. Tariffs might also decrease a little bit, right? But U.S. not gonna lift these tariffs from India completely for sure, because these tariffs were never about the topic that U.S. used to justify these tariffs. It was never about India buying Russian oil or Ukrainian crisis. It's about, as I said in my previous update, it's about manufacturing plants that a number of companies, big companies, Western ones primarily, are transferring from China to India. What U.S. wants is to force these businesses, basically companies, to transfer manufacturing plants not to India but to U.S. itself. That's the reason why they are imposing tariffs on India, to make Indian goods so expensive that it will make no financial sense for the businesses to transfer their manufacturing capabilities from China or any other country in the global south towards the India. And they are, by the way, transferring this process of transferring manufacturing plants from China to India and other countries in the global south, in the Pacifics, for example, Vietnam or Laos. This process has begun quite a longer time ago, even before this latest phase of escalation between NATO and Russia, because living standards in China increased tremendously, right, in last 20, 30 years. And their wages increased also, and therefore businesses are looking for places where they can pay less. That's what it is. It's a purely financial deal for them, right? But of course, U.S. tariffs on China accelerated this process. And now U.S. just want to make sure that, these businesses that moving out from China or have such a plans will move into U.S. if they want to be there on U.S. is a quite lucrative market. Let's be real here, right? So therefore, I don't believe Washington will lift the tariffs completely on India, although rhetoric might be a little softer from Washington. But does it changes strategically much for India? Not really. A few more news. China and India are in talks to restart their border trade after a 5-year halt, which is a good news, by the way, which is a good news. I just said that Russia and India have to be strategical partners for many reasons, and the main reason, or second main reason, let's say, after historical close friendly ties, is that China is in the middle of our countries, right? And China is a major economical powerhouse, and they're soon to be major military powerhouse, right? And just to be on the safe side, it is in the interests of both, by the way, Russia and India, to be true strategical partners, by the way, not just on a paper, but real ones, right? Real friends, and that's something that cannot be doubted, right? In my opinion. But nevertheless, same time, we have to build close friendly relationships with China too, to make sure that no matter who is in charge there in China, Beijing not gonna become hostile towards either of our countries, like in India or Russia, right? So therefore, this is great news. This is great news that China and India are in talks to restart border trade after a 5-year halt. And lately, by the way, there is clearly progress being made between New Delhi and Beijing, despite some very significant issues between the two, including border issue, right? Border skirmishes and so on. And this is good. This is good. We need stable and good working relationships, even friendly relationships, as much as possible with China. Although, of course, priority for India and Russia should be strategical partnership between each other. Just to be on the safe side. And Rianost is reporting, and I will end news segment on this news that might be helpful, by the way, if you are, for example, using WhatsApp or Telegram for calls to Russia, by the way. You might have relatives here in Russia or friends, and if you are using Telegram and WhatsApp for video calls or calls, voice calls, you might experience some difficulties these days because Russia partially restricted calls via these two platforms. And I believe this is done to create a better situation for Russian domestic messaging service Max to gain the popularity, by the way. Also, I mean, formally, justification of this measure is that these platforms, WhatsApp and Telegram, were used by all sorts of scammers, and there are a lot of scammers, by the way, definitely on all platforms. Under every single post, if I don't forget, by the way, under every single post on Telegram, I have to put a disclaimer that be vigilant. There are faking scammers there. They are faking accounts, by the way, of existing channels, including my channel, by the way. Almost every day, I am deleting on and banning on Telegram accounts that are copying mine. Same name, they use my photo, and they're pretending to be me, basically. And the only way you can say difference when I'm posting something, because I'm a moderator on the channel, administrator, under every my post, on top of every my post, there should be written admin of the channel or something. You will realize, right, that it's actually me. But nevertheless, to stay on the safe side, I'm posting under every freaking or under almost every these posts on Telegram, disclaimers that be vigilant. There are scammers on the platform, a lot of them, right? And don't let them fool you. And I'm deleting and banning these scammer accounts literally on daily basis, by the way, right? On YouTube is the same problem, actually. Every day I'm banning on YouTube accounts that are promoting some freaking crypto something, or I don't even know what they are promoting. It's a bots, by the way. It's not really humans that doing this, isn't it? Bots are creating these accounts automatically and spreading this freaking spam all over the places. So it is true that these platforms were used by scammers 100%, and also these platforms actively were used there, including phone call services of these platforms by this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky and their assets on Russian territories. So there is a security reason also why these calls have been restricted. But nevertheless, if you were calling in Russia with either WhatsApp or Telegram these days, and if you were unable to contact your friend or relatives, you should know that it's not your phone, it's not your internet connection, it's decision of Russian authorities, Roskomnadzor, basically, to restrict these call services on these platforms, and that's about it. That's about it, by the way, for today's news segment. I guess there was no super chat. There was no super chat, by the way, on On Rumble, there was no donation or through any, through PayPal or Boosty or anything. So nothing to highlight. And therefore, a couple of minutes, dear friends, I will join community chat, and that's gonna be it for today. I'm receiving recommendations to have moderators on the channel, and I'm gonna ask her Bonzo Beans, who is a moderator on Rumble, if he will accept being moderator on YouTube. Also, he's helping me. By the way, I'm in no position to actually pay for this support, and it is any work, by the way, in my opinion, have to be paid, right? And if he can voluntarily help me with moderating on YouTube, also, he will become a moderator here. I'm gonna ask him today, tomorrow, whenever I will just have like a couple of minutes, free to write him later. Because yes, lately I did notice that sometimes there is some skirmishes in the chat, and I don't really like this. And I truly hope community will exchange opinions in friendly manner. By the way, no matter what topic we are discussing, we should be always respectful and friendly towards each other. I mean, this is the only way. I'm scrolling now in the chat, dear friends. As I said, a minute or two. I will stay in the chat, and Nitish Kumar is commenting, Levan, why don't Russia declare war? It will activate CSTO and Belarus, but does stand countries have capabilities to mass produce modern equipment as they take help to stabilize internal affairs. Russia didn't declare war because declaration of war would mean a whole new scale of operation itself, right? If Russia declared their war on whom? And first of all, by the way, you cannot declare war; it's illegal. Based on UN charters, you can conduct preemptive military operations, special military operations, but declaration of war is illegal, and that's one of the reasons why, since the Second World War, there was very few occasions, right, when war was actually declared. U.S. was engaged in Vietnam for how many years, and it was not war. War was never declared, by the way, right? Since the Second World War, U.S. have not declared war on nobody, and this country is constantly engaged in wars, right? So declaration of war is illegal, and consequences can be very severe, right? And that's why Russia is not declaring war. And war on whom? We all know that Kyiv regime is controlled by West, right? Since the 2014, for sure, 100%. And what should Russia do? Declare war on entire NATO? That would mean nuclear war, full-scale nuclear war, and end of everything, right? So it's to say it might seem easy, not just declare war, but war on whom? On Kyiv regime, on Ukraine. How are you going to declare war on Ukraine when you know that it's not Ukrainian leadership? Actually, it's not a leadership that people have chosen. It's a leadership that West put there in their colony, right? So you're going to declare war on a colony, or you're going to declare war on a metropolia. So that's why war was not declared. One of the explanations that I can come up with, by the way. Of course, I don't know what calculus Kremlin has, but And Nish Kumar is also commenting, first, Russia must stop showing restraint I guess you mean, to receive support from West, uh, from allies, not from the West, but from the allies. Um, with restraint or without restraint, I think allies should be more engaged in this fight for humanity that Russia is fighting, by the way, for everybody, right? Not just for itself, but for everybody, because we are fighting truly evil force, by the way, that exists on this planet that Western elites are, Western ruling class. And this is happening for 3 to 5 centuries at least, right? That these Western elites turned into absolute evil. At least 3 to 500 years, by the way. Western elites have turned to absolute evil, complete evil, by the way. Spider, okay, is asking, can Orthodox Christians trust communists? Well, nowadays communists are, by the way, very different than original communists. And then there is also a difference between communists, different kind of communists, right? In Soviet Union, even in Soviet Union, communists had several iterations, right? Originally, there was one phase, then things change, their ideology change a bit. In China, there was a very different communist regime, by the way. In Cambodia, by the way, there was, for example, worst communist regime, formally communist regime possible was existing under the Red Khmers. That was, they committed genocide of their own people on unbelievable scale, by the way. They were targeting Vietnamese, first of all. It was Cambodia, isn't it? They were targeting Vietnamese, first of all. But then they began killing their own, right? And who was their leader, by the way? Most despicable human, one of the most despicable humans ever, by the way. Let me Google. I forgot his name, who was a leader of that bloody Cambodian communists, by the way. Pol Pot, by the way. Pol Pot, how could I forget his freaking name, man? Pol Pot was absolute horror in his regime, isn't it? He decimated population of cities, by the way, forced everybody into rural areas, banned study and banned almost everything, right? Horrible, horrible individual and regime. And you know what? Soviet Union was on against that regime, right? And you know which regime was supporting them? US, by the way. And it was a Kissinger, isn't it? Kissinger or Brzezinski that was actually building ties between Cambodia under the Pol Pot and Washington. And if I remember correctly, U.S. president, one of the U.S. presidents actually even visited Cambodia during this regime of Red Khmers. We call them Krasnoye Khmer, right? So yes, communists are very different, by the way, and at this point, probably no one can actually give you a description what communism means. So different communists probably have different attitude towards Orthodox Christianity. Majority of them probably are atheists, right? And well, because of the history, by the way, many believers, many Orthodox Christians that are truly into a religion, they will struggle to have any positive attitude towards communists. Nothing to be said about trust. After all, even in Soviet Union, by the way, Christianity, Orthodox Christianity was under, and religion in general, by the way, it was under tremendous pressure, isn't it? And so many churches were destroyed by Bolsheviks, by the way, and so many churches were turned into some concert halls and that kind of stuff. I grew up in central part of Tbilisi, by the way, Georgia, capital of Georgia, during the Soviet Union, and right next to my home there was a church, right? Church that had name of Saint Nicholas, and that church was turned into a concert hall, and there was plenty of tourists, by the way. I remember my childhood. I mean, a lot of tourists were coming in and visiting their area and going into this church and watching some dances and songs and stuff. And this was something that was done by communists, by the way. So therefore, if you really are in religion, and if you are a true believer, then you will struggle to have any trust towards communists, by the way. Although nowadays communists are just some are left liberals, some are left conservatives, but they have very little in common with those old communists that overtook control, let's say in Soviet Union. Even nothing to be said about some other countries. So nowadays communists are, I would say, different. They themselves, many of them probably think are Christians or Orthodox Christians, not atheists. So it's individual, by the way. It's individual. I would not make parallels between nowadays communists and older ones. Nowadays, they are just left liberals. Maybe they should change name and call themselves like Liberal Party or Left Liberal Party or whatever, man. Right? Because association with the word communism and what it means for many people worldwide is quite a negative one, right? This time. So that's the answer that I can give you. It's individual stuff. I mean, I'm Orthodox Christian, by the way. I never voted for communists. I'm never gonna vote for communists, right? I don't trust communists personally, but this is just me, right? I can talk about only myself. I'm left liberal, though, by our standards here in Russia or in post-Soviet area. I'm a left liberal, by the way. Although if I went to Europe or in US, for example, or in Australia, I don't know, probably I will be called right-wing, radical, maybe even. But by our standards, I see myself as a left liberal, right? So therefore, left many principles of left ideology is quite close to me, although not all, obviously. So I'm a left centrist, more like. Anyways, by the way, let's continue with the. Okay, I see no questions different. Sorry if I miss your question. And so yes, this is it. Yes, left side crew. Left side. That's it. China supported the Pol Pot as well. Left side crew is commenting, and yes, absolutely. And China supported because China was a U.S. ally at the time, right? It was exactly Brzezinski. Oh, no, not Brzezinski, but I mean, U.S. was building relationships with China and began investing in China in 70s, isn't it? When this intensified significantly, and they were planning to use China against Soviet Union, right? Because there was serious tensions between Soviet Union and China, despite both countries being run by communist parties. And obviously, China was supporting not just Pol Pot, by the way, but China was supporting U.S. During the Vietnamese War in many ways that they could. Or China was supporting U.S. In Afghanistan when Russian Soviet troops went in Afghanistan. China, Pakistan, U.S. They were actually main force behind the Mujahideens, right? They were arming Mujahideens, training them, providing them with their munition and so on. Many people maybe don't know about it, but yeah, China was used against Soviet Union on many occasions, right? Nothing to be said about war that had happened between China and Vietnam. It was late 60s or 70s. I cannot tell you exact year now, but there was actually direct military clashes between China and Vietnam too, and Vietnamese won that war, by the way, right? And so, yes, I agree with you absolutely there. And this is it, dear friends. Thank you all. Thank you all for your attention, dear friends, for your time. Hopefully, you did find the new segment informative and useful. Question time also, and if so, please don't forget to like the video. It might help. And after stream will end literally in a minute, please leave some commentary in the comment section. It might help to deal with the algorithm, and maybe we will reach wider audience. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day, and take care.